All right, Shalom Rastafari. I wanted to touch on Akhenaten and the musicians from Egypt and abroad. I find that to be interesting in the name of the pic on the right-hand side, where it has the name Egyptians, musicians from Egypt and abroad. Let's see if we can just zoom that there so you can see that for yourself. Okay, let's give me a moment right here. Turn this around. There you can see it right there. Musicians from Egypt and abroad. Right? Musicians from Egypt and abroad, relief from the Akhenaten Temple project in Karnak. Now, Karnak, from what I've heard, I haven't gotten to see that in this flesh, in this hypostasis, this akal, this body as of yet, but many others have gone. Many of our scholars, researchers, teachers, practitioners have gone to Egypt. Some of y'all might have gone on some of the tours to Egypt and have seen various things for yourself. You understand? In other words, really being there. And I'm sure that's a wonderful experience. Some of us have not gone, but even while not going, still amen. In other words, we still, from a ancient perspective, believe, but believe in ancient perspective was amen. So if you hear me use amen, like we amen this or we amen that, it's coming from our Ethiopic Kush root, the word amnalo or namanalen. When we say namanalen, we admit, right? We are convinced, we are persuaded. You know, we accept this as truth. Just to understand what the amen actually means in its principle level, right? In its principle level, when we take it out of the principle level and it becomes more culturally, right? More culturally assimilated. Let's move out of this right here, right? And let's straighten this out right here. Yeah, when we move it out of the principle level. So there's two things we need to understand. The principle, well, actually three things, but there's the cultural level. What we first encounter is the cultural level. So when we look at ancient Egypt and we look at the Bible and we view it through the supreme delusion of the European mind, it leads many of us to say that Moses, right, that Moses stole this, right, out of ancient Egypt, because that's the way that many of us have read. Many of the European scholars have also led us to believe, or led us to that half truth, right, that half truth concerning who the Hebrews are. And I like to just show this right here, who the Hebrews are, right? At the at the top of that, some say, we'll touch on that right there. What's at the top? Actually, that'd be Elohim. Some say Elohim up there, according to Egyptian hieroglyphs, Ethiopian, from an Ethiopian perspective. Brother Lasane Legessa Ireland, Brother Legessa Ireland, the Kal hieroglyphs. There's a brother who's actually taken the hieroglyphs of Metunet to task and found much of the Ethiopian languages, at least the Tigrinya and the Amara or Amharic, and find words that link, seeing that the origin of the ancient Egyptian, though the Kemite civilization, Kemet was a colony of ancient Kush, and Kush was the god land. Now we need to keep in mind that Moses was learned in all the wisdom of the Egypts, according to Acts 7:22. He also married the daughter of the high priest of Median. Median was like Texas in a sense. It was a province of the Ethiopian or the Cushitic Empire, just like Texas is a state, right, in the American Empire, so to speak, right there. But here we wanted to touch on this musical correspondence, right? This musical correspondence. This comes from the time of Akhenaten. Now, what's very interesting about, let's just zoom in. There's a couple of features here. We don't have all the pictures, the comparative pictures. So please understand that. And others who have a good mental knowledge of this can compare it mentally. And for those who can't, hopefully we'll do other videos or we'll show you that. This is very interesting. This type of hetch, or southern Egyptian or southern kingdom, what they call Upper Egypt, the hetch right here. But this is very much similar to, let's get this right here, to this particular crown, right? Similar to even in certain orders, Bobo Shanti, for example, today, certain who are into African culture, right? Depends on, they might have different, there's a brother who is into ancient Kemet, and one might think he's Rasta in the sense of Rasta, but he will tell you that he might embrace certain truths of Rastafari and might not others, but this as a cultural, right? There's that cultural link, right? But there's a principle that this embodies. This is why we use this as a kind of a placeholder for the Muse, right? The Muse type, or the Moses type. The Muse means the head of the fraternal order of the Israelite types, because the ancient Israelites were culturally Egyptianized. They were culturally Egyptianized. Why I find this particular relief here to be of great interest, right, is, first of all, if you focus on the faces, I don't know if you can see this face right here. If you focus on some of the faces, worn down, it's almost like, why was all of this destroyed, right? Why was this destroyed in ancient Egypt by ancient Egyptians who, so-called racially speaking, would have been Kem, or Kamitic, quote, black, end quote. Why was from his period, from Akhenaten's period, why was so much of this destroyed? That's one question right there. The Egyptology tells us that he was the first monotheist, right? But then a deeper study of Kush culture and spirituality tells us that that's not true. It also tells us that the Aten, right, this particular symbol, the Aten, right, is and was to the Hebrews, right? The Aten to the Hebrews was known as the Adonai, right? Adonai, or the Adon. So we have Aten, Adon. In the earlier vid, we actually also put in two Amharic terms or Ethiopic terms, Itan, which is incense, right? Which goes up, and it also goes up in the waves, if you look at that. So we have science there, the waves. And the Iton, right? The Iton is a furnace, right? The Iton is a furnace. So in the Son of Righteousness, healing in her wings, that's why I think I'm going to call the video, the previous vid, the healing in her wings. We wanted to show that, first of all, from our Ethiopic representation, there is principal correspondences, right? Principal correspondences right here, that what we first of all need to do is we need to understand those keys. That when one says aton in English, we will say pay attention, right? Attention, right? So we have a kind of an English correspondence right there. But then in the symbology, we have a very dynamic symbology. Now we can look at the symbology today, right, and say, what does this signify right here? Now, Egyptology will tell us, oh, they were like primitive people in the negative connotation that didn't really understand what they were doing, and they were groping around and all this. But that is totally that's too much snow on the TV. When you see snow on the TV, you can't see the true picture. You're not getting the true picture, right? And part of the reason why Europeans don't get the true picture, or haven't got the true picture, especially in the heyday of their the Gentile system, or the Gentile dominion, this present world system, is because of the deficiency, right, in their melanin and their melanatedness, both at the superficial or the skin level, because now this same sun becomes an enemy to that type, even today. Yet they, in their own culture, have attraction to getting sunbathed. So there's something going on among the European that he is not really too conscious. He is not really too conscious of. So when we're speaking about the Son of Righteousness in Malachi, where King James says healing in her wings, we find a totally different contextualization, right, within the Amharic and the Ethiopic. And thank Jah for an independent reference point that we as Ethiopian Hebrews have in our studies to be able to study certain words and concepts, right, from their Ethiopic root, and that the Ethiopic, or the Ge'ez. Now it's interesting when we go into Ge'ez, because we have Agazi, right, and then we have Giza Plateau. And then so there's a whole link within that word sound. And then we have Gizeh, the word Gizeh, which refers to time. A very interesting conceptualization. Then we also have Ge'uz, which refers to neuter. Neuter, right? That means being in a neutral, almost like dark matter, right? The dark matter. The light shines in the darkness, but the darkness does not comprehend it. I mean, even today, many black folks don't comprehend the importance of the light that is within them, because they don't know who they are, because they have been programmed in a delusion, right? We could call it the matrix, a particular perspective of seeing reality. And I say to you that from our true Ethiopic root, which even many Ethiopians today have apostated themselves from, because when they show you, many of them Mary, they don't show you Mary in their image. So that means, and they think it means the same thing. So we can see this melanin deficiency, right? There's really a spiritual first, and a psychological secondarily, and then a physiological manifestation on the tertiary level. Now, when it comes to that physiological manifestation, this is where that we have old time leprosy, which is what the Torah portion right now is cleansing, is a Torah portion on cleansing the leper. Yet I'm going through these videos in this particular season as we have about a week, a little more than 7 days before a very important season for us, right? And it's not about the outer work, right? It's really about the inner work. As Yeshua, Jesus, or Jesus, the true one, said, the work is to Amen, right? To Amen in the Bain Ha-Elohim. To Amen in the Bain. In other words, it's to Amen. That means to admit, to make that spiritual connection, that your soul finds its true soul mate. See, the true soul mate is not another person. The true soul mate is the Menfes Kedus, the Holy Spirit, or we can call it the righteousness in that dark matter, that spirit, that which we don't see, but we perceive on so many other levels. Some are gifted to even see, and they are called Bale Arai or Bale Arayot. They are seers. The Bible tells us that before there were prophets, before the prophets, the Nabiyat, the news bearers, the Nabi, before they were called prophets, they were called Bale Arai. These are those who had, some call it second sight. These are those who had spiritual vision. These are those who can look past the cultural or even the physical and see the spiritual. This is why when we look at ancient Egypt in a proper perspective, or Kush, or Kam Kush, we see that they were metaphysicians, scientists par excellence. The things that they have discovered, European medicine and Western Gentile science has only rediscovered. So when they talk about discovery today, it's only a rediscovery. And re is array, and array, right, is the sun, or that sun-like star, the sun-like star. Many people think array is just the sun. The sun is a symbol for the central primordial sun, and the central primordial sun is not seen on the physical level, but is perceived on the spiritual level. So when we're speaking about the sun of righteousness,